Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. This is not really a normal episode of CD Junkie where I go through a band's entire catalog and tell you about each album because I don't have the band's entire catalog. The band I'm going to talk about is Australia's Mondo Rock. They were around from about 1976 to about 1991, and then they've gotten together sporadically since then, and they've toured. There hasn't been any new music. But the only reason I'm not going to do a whole CD Junkie is because I have spent years trying to track down two of their CDs that are Australian only. One is called The Modern Bop, and the other one is called Nuovo Mondo. And neither of them are available. I have not seen them come up on Discogs for a reasonable price. I can't afford to pay $75 or $100 for a CD. And they haven't come up on eBay. And it's just heartbreaking that I don't own them. Are they my grails? They're not my grails, but they're a handful of titles that are on my want list and have been on my want list for many years. But let me tell you about Mondo Rock. Frontman is Ross Wilson. He used to front a band called Daddy Cool, one of Australia's premier legendary classic rock bands. They had a song called Eagle Rock, and they were around in the early 70s, might have been even the late 60s, I'm not sure, because I didn't do that much research because I'm more of a Mondo Rock fan. But Daddy Cool are legends over there. Daddy Cool broke up and Ross Wilson formed Mondo Rock in 1976. Now that early lineup of Mondo Rock, changed a little bit. By 1979, they put out an album called Primal Park. This is the CD version that has bonus tracks. And with this album, they were pretty much a nice rock and roll band. They weren't really into the new wave thing. I don't think that they got caught up in that. They were still closer to Daddy Cool, but completely different as well. But the band split up, and by 1980, it was a whole new lineup. Eric McCusker came in on guitar and main songwriter. You also had Paul Christie on bass. James Black was on keyboards. Gil Matthews was on drums, but so, that lineup changed a few times, over their hit years. But in 1981, that lineup put out the album Chemistry, which is probably their most famous album in Australia. This is the expanded edition that has bonus tracks and a bonus live disc. There is a version here in America that Wounded Bird put out. That's just the album, but I highly recommend that because this might be a harder one to track down. But it's definitely worth your while. Now, before I continue, let me sort of tell you what Mondo Rock sounds like. They have that new wave edge, not post-punk or anything like that, because they're very pop. But they do have that new wave edge, sort of staccato guitars on some songs and, keyboard flourishes and stuff. But they're also closer to AOR. That's album-oriented rock for some of you who don't quite get that. So it's very commercial rock, with nice heavy chords and there's even maybe a touch of what some people call yacht rock with some of the chord changes. They weren't commercial like Little River Band, but they weren't super quirky like Split Enz, and they weren't overtly political like Midnight Oil, but they're a little bit of all that stuff. I mean, a very, very Australian sounding band. The new wave kids are going to say, ooh, that sounds kind of commercial. The commercial kids are going to go, oh, that's not commercial enough. So they were sort of, caught in that, but it was okay because they were creating music that sounded like Mondo Rock, and it was really, really wonderful. Now, in 1982, they put out one of those albums I've been struggling to find on CD called Nuovo Mondo, and that's right there. And that was a hit album for them. It had a couple hit singles. And in 1984, they put out the album The Modern Bop, which is right there. And that had another couple singles. Now, in America, the last thing that had been released was the Chemistry album. But they were big enough sellers in Australia that America said, hey, we're going to give them a chance over here. So they took a lot of songs off of Modern Bop, plus maybe a single or two that had been released around there, and maybe one or two tracks from Nuovo Mondo. And they remixed them, sort of Americanized them, and they put out the album Mondo Rock, which is right there. That's never been released on CD. That is an album that you might be able to find in the bins fairly easy, and it's a really good representation of Mondo Rock. But as I said, some of the songs are remixed and really beefed up for the American market. An interesting thing about Mondo Rock that I forgot to mention off the Chemistry album is they have a song called State of the Heart. And Rick Springfield actually did a cover of that a few years later. And I don't know why Rick Springfield actually received songwriting credit on his version, because he certainly was not credited on the other version and had nothing to do with it. But maybe he changed some of the lyrics. I've never paid that close of attention to it. But it was good that the band had some kind of recognition, even if it was just through a Rick Springfield cover version. But in 1986, they released another American album called Boom Baby Boom. I think this is different from the Australian one. This is the American one. This is a very, a tougher sounding album. They were a little more rock, but it still sounded fantastic. Now, that version of the band split up, and Eric McCusker and Ross Wilson continued 5 years later with Mondo Rock and an album called Why Fight It. And this album actually features, Bernie Worrell, from Parliament on keyboards, features Ricky Fattar from the Beach Boys and the Ruddles, and Waddy Wachtel. And so it's a very commercial, maybe even a more American sounding album. But this was the last thing they released, and then they broke up. Now, the album I'm going to talk about right now, the one that I really want to focus on, I just wanted to give you a sort of a brief explanation of who Mondo Rock was, what they sound like. The one that I want you to check out, because it's easier to find than anything else here, is the Essential Mondo Rock. Now, your version's probably not going to come with that crack. I had to pay extra for that. You're always having to pay extra for crack, if you know what I mean. But this is a great 2 CD collection, and it contains songs from the band's hit period. So you're going to get things like Come Said the Boy, The Moment, Baby Wants to Rock, State of the Heart, Cool World, Summer of 81, all these great songs. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Eric McCusker is a great songwriter. Ross Wilson, what a voice from heaven. This guy's amazing. And I think that the reason Mondo Rock didn't catch on in America was you couldn't classify them. They were all over the map. There were songs that maybe had sort of a funky leaning to them, or harder rock leaning. It's a band that's really worth your time. In fact, what I've done is I've put together about 3-minute medley featuring snippets of songs from this particular compilation, just to introduce you to the band and hopefully inspire you to check them out further. So why don't you sit back, relax, give this a listen, and I will see you on the other side.
I might break into your cool world, break into your cool world. I'll break into your cool world. If I seem a little strange, it's just the state of the heart. I'm waiting here
Well, that's it. I hope this inspires you to check out Mondo Rock. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. But please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.